What does the MEGA CORE Magnetizer, chocolate chip cookies, and pre-Disney Star Wars all have in common? They're good. More importantly, they're timeless. Ask just a handful of LEGO space fans what their favorite set is, and no doubt, out of the hundreds of sets spread across dozens of sub-themes, someone's going to answer with this one. And it's easy to see why. It's big, it's action-packed. It's the set that made the designers say, Tron doesn't need a space base, their base is on wheels. There are a lot of old sets out there that you could say, I think I had that, or I might have had that. But this isn't one of them. If this was in your collection as a kid, you remember it. So let's find out why. For so many who grew up with this set, it's not just the MEGA CORE Magnetizer, it's a MEGA CORE memory. Welcome to Trick Bricks. Hello again everyone, Jamie here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the mighty 6989 MEGA CORE Magnetizer as we bring our comprehensive Tron Retrospective to a close. This all-time classic was released in 1990, contains 503 pieces, 3 minifigures, and retailed for $60 in the US. That's right around $150 adjusted for inflation. Unfortunately, I don't have the original box or instructions for this one, which is a shame because the online instructions are pretty low resolution, making them difficult to follow at times. Hopefully I've got this thing built right. The box art, like every other set in the theme, features some fantastic product photography, as well as a few interesting alternate builds. I'd definitely like to pick up a box at some point, but for now, all I've got is the set, which I'd say is the most important part, so let's strap in and see what the MEGA CORE Magnetizer is all about. This thing has a very distinctive look when compared to most of the other large space vehicles of the 80s and 90s, in large part thanks to these 6 massive wheels, which happen to be among the several set exclusive pieces we'll see today. Far larger than the standard wheels of this design, these things will roll over just about any terrain without breaking a sweat. And that rolling is made even more fun by the fully functional steering incorporated into the build. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's start up front and work our way back. The nose of the vehicle has a bit of a hood ornament in the form of this 1x1 finned cylinder, molded in trans neon green of course, and it's flanked by a few grille tiles and these black speaker or thruster elements. And if trans neon green is your color, you're in luck, because to my knowledge, this huge windscreen was the largest element ever made in that color. It also happens to be another set exclusive. This piece is most commonly used in a vertical position to simulate large windows on space bases, but I think its employment here was a stroke of genius, with this outer curve perfectly hugging the tops of the front tires, and just giving the vehicle a much sleeker look than a big lumbering rover would normally have. This build up top, which also controls the steering, keeps the windscreen held down while bouncing across the rough landscape, because this whole thing flips forward for access to the cockpit, and does so without any friction whatsoever. So this up here was probably deemed necessary to keep the windscreen in place. But that also means that about 95% of these you'll find will have these half-circle scratches etched into the plastic, due to the plate above rubbing against it while making turns. A bit unfortunate, but that's the nature of the beast, I guess. So we can flip this up and tilt this forward, and now we've got a much better view of the interior, complete with seats for 3 astronauts and all kinds of instrumentation for them to interact with. A printed tile for each of the rear passengers, and some control sticks for the driver. I really like the tiered stadium-style seating design of this cockpit, so these 3 guys each have an equally great view of what's ahead. Continuing rearward, we've got a cargo container on either side of the steering mechanism, and these are just kind of sitting here, held in place by gravity alone. And that's for a very good reason, which we'll get to in a moment. These are both built in a similar fashion, each having these printed hinge panels, a magnet on top, and some grille detail. But the contents are unique to each one. Per the instructions, this container is actually empty, but there's plenty of room inside for all sorts of tools and other small items. Or you might use this as a temporary shelter for one of your astronauts out in the field. A nice little touch are these classic 1x1 printed tiles. This one, on the other hand, is fully stocked. It features an unwinding hose and nozzle, which you could see as being intended for fuel, or going back to M-Tron's international purpose being that of a rescue team, this could be for spraying a fire suppressant. And on the other end, we've got a pair of wearable backpacks that also contain the hose and nozzle. To me, these definitely seem like they're meant to be rescue equipment, and they're great for giving your team some variety. With the containers removed, we're left with these two platforms that can act as landing pads for some smaller spacecraft, such as the Pulsar Charger, or even one of the small rovers, which, with an added magnet, can be loaded and unloaded via the boom. Besides having some nice details, like this printed radar, an antenna, and these 4 rear-facing trans-neon green cones, this is probably the most fun part of the set, and my personal favorite thing to play around with. The MEGA CORE Magnetizer comes with a whopping 8 magnets, and of course this boom can be used in conjunction with all of them. It's built on a turntable for 360-degree rotation, but in addition to that, a hinge has also been integrated into its base, as well as a rack and pinion system operated by this gear on the side, allowing it to move in just about any direction your heart desires. It's an easy task to reach down and pick up one of these containers, putting it back into its place, and we also have this small container in the center, again, easily reached. This is actually how I keep the vehicle most of the time, since this box is helpful when it comes to keeping the boom from swiveling around freely when not in use. Inside, we'll find a pair of trans-neon green studs. Another fun use for the boom is to extract the 2 small rovers from their little docking bays on each side. While getting them back in can be a bit tricky without any additional help from your hands, undocking and deploying them is a breeze. Both rovers share the same simplistic design, but you do have enough room here for a single pilot, as well as the ability to transport one of these smaller containers, like so. And they're not the only small vehicles we'll find piggybacking on the MCM. If we spin this around and take a look at the rear, we're presented with a couple of large thrusters, and these printed aero tiles. And if you're familiar with 80s and 90s space sets, you'll know that these signify some sort of action feature. But as you can see, these are kind of locked in place. In order to open them, we'll have to raise up this little locking mechanism on each side, which in turn allows these thrusters to swing out of the way, and gives us access to the rear cargo ramp. Now, I've never been a big fan of large sections of exposed anti-studs, but unfortunately, with the way these thrusters lock the door shut, there's no quick and easy way to change that. If you were to simply flip this around on the hinge, the studs wouldn't allow these to fully swing into place. But it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen the other, since it looks great when the ramp is lowered. And inside this little cargo bay is where we'll find the last vehicle the MEGA CORE Magnetizer has at her disposal, this very small aircraft. Like the rovers, it has just enough room for a single pilot, and has the all-important ability to transport magnetic elements. I love the fact that you can also use this space back here to transport extra M-Tronians or anything else that'll fit, something I felt was lacking in the construction of the other big M-Tron vehicle, the Stellar Recon Voyager. And since this thing is the closest we ever got to a proper M-Tron base, it's nice for our astronauts to be able to get out of the elements, or lack thereof. As I mentioned in the beginning, the MEGA CORE Magnetizer is at the top of many LEGO space fans' lists, and I think it's certainly worthy of that. While there are far too many amazing space sets for me to single out just one that rises above the rest, at the very least, this is by far my favorite M-Tron offering. The possibilities for daring adventures, rescue operations, and bold new explorations are endless with the MCM, and at the end of the day, that's what makes a great LEGO set. And I can wholeheartedly recommend adding this to your collection. But be warned, it's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. Be prepared to peel off about $200 to $250 for it. and that price has skyrocketed in the past few years. When I bought mine around 2019, I paid just a little over $100 for it, so you can also tell your wife it's an investment. Also, keep in mind that you're getting a decent amount of set exclusive parts, and factor in the overall popularity of the set. Even if you overpay for this, I still think you'll be happy to have it. So, with this triumphant finale, we bring our Tron Retrospective to a close. It's a classic theme that I expect will continue to age like fine wine, and just get better as the years go on. Until next time, this has been Jamie for Trick Bricks. As always, thanks for watching, take care, and play well.